Okay, everyone hit your buttons. So we are live and ready, okay? Call the meeting to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call. It looks like everyone is in attendance today. And any additions to the agenda or modifications? Staff, anything that needs to be added? No?
I believe the budget,
Wouldn't
the
that come?
minutes.
Wouldn't that come out of the next one, though? I think it comes out when he,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
I think we're fine.
Okay. Okay, approval of the consent agenda and meeting minutes. Any comments?
I do.
Wait.
Oh,
Go ahead.
A few comments, okay.
Yeah, on page 10, it says here, Field said that the county landfill property adjacent to Rogers Landing would be ideal for walking paths and mountain bikes, and a no-fee paddle launch. And really, I didn't say no-fee paddle launch. It would be no fee if you had your own boat, but if you use our paddle boards, there would certainly be a fee.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that's clear. Perfect, thank you.
So I think you pull the minutes at this point until they're corrected and you approve them the next time.
Right.
And then the second thing, I would want to pull the minutes as well, because under page 8, the motion to approve Andy Metcalf construction, the amount is $4,065,680, not $4,650,000.
Okay, did you get those numbers okay?
Thank you.
Could you repeat that number again, please?
Yeah.
It should be $4,065,680, and it says in here $4,650,000. So it's just a transposition
Mm-hmm.
of the numbers.
Okay. Any other modifications or comments on the minutes?
No.
Okay, so we'll have those done and then we'll have those passed at the next meeting. Any other questions regarding anything else in the consent agenda?
No.
Okay.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second it.
A motion is made to approve the consent agenda with the amendments made to the minutes. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Okay, Don, do we have the auditors available, or should we move that?
Are the auditors on? Richard?
Hey everyone, can I?
We could hear you. Can you keep talking so we can make sure
There's a
that?
delay from.
Okay.
It might be fixed now.
Okay.
Could you, when going over letter and any questions that the board has for 1.2 finance. A little bit, just want to make sure. Hearing fine.
It's kind of in and out. We can hear you. Sounds like every other sentence.
Okay. Okay, so in regard.
Yeah, I think we're still having issues.
Yeah, internet's frozen.
It's either the internet or a mic issue.
No, it's frozen because you see I'm still
Oh,
sitting.
yeah. All right, we're down. Okay.
Maybe we could bring them back to the January meeting.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna have to, we'll move that pending the ability to have technology work tonight. If we can't get it to work, we'll have to bring that to the January meeting. Okay. Item B, we'll go ahead and move to citizens' concerns. Do we know what that?
Yes, that's, would be John.
Okay.
Good evening, I'm John Bridges. I'm John Bridges, attorney at Brown, Tarlow, Bridges, and Palmer, a law firm here in town. Mr. Clements asked me to address a couple of things that have come up lately and give a couple updates on them. The two things that they asked me to address was a complaint that someone had about texting at the meeting, and just wanted to make sure that the board knew kind of the rules on that, because it's a bit of a fine line. And then secondarily, there was an appeal of a fee waiver, and I wanted to give you an update on that appeal that was appealed to the district attorney's office. That's the statutory process. So let me talk first about texting. Texting at a meeting isn't inherently bad. You certainly can text and use your phone to do things that are private matters, but then if it ever gets to be a use that is about a public matter before the board, and it doesn't even have to be a public matter that's just that very moment, right? It could have been something that's coming up a little bit later in the meeting, or you're gonna consider it even a different meeting. If a person uses their phone for anything like that, then they need to provide the record of whatever they look at to the district, because whatever you use that phone, or if you brought a tablet or a computer, whatever you consider during the public meeting is a public record. So I know that one of the board members said, hey, I looked at a website during the meeting. And so and there's a little bit of difficulty here, because websites are changeable, and we really need the website that the person looked at, so whatever it was on that particular day. So an easy way for someone to provide that to the district is to provide them the link that they looked at, and then the district could go to that link, and then they could print off that and make it part of the public record. I also I believe somebody said that they had looked at some notes from maybe some off-site work. Maybe they were doing some committee work or something, and that to do a presentation, they looked at their notes. By doing that, those notes would then become a public record and need to be provided. I think other board members said, hey, I use that as part of the packet. I use the agenda to run the meeting, or I look at the packet materials on my phone or on my tablet or computer. That would be fine, because that's already a public record. It's not something that the board members would have to provide. So that's kind of the rules on that. I do, however, want to caution the board, because you sit kind of as a legislator sometimes, and you sit sometimes as a quasi-judicial decision maker. And I was trying to think of, people who do land use work, like before city councils, those are clearly quasi-judicial decisions. But I think the definition of quasi-judicial decisions is anytime you might apply some criteria or set up a set of rules, and then you'd be doing a quasi-judicial activity. And that just is a fancy way of saying you're doing something that you're acting like a judge, right? In the legislature, you're doing something that acts like the legislator. And in a quasi-judicial setting or a judicial setting, everybody kind of errs on the side of an appearance of impropriety. So you would want to avoid even, obviously you want to avoid impropriety, but you also want to avoid an appearance of impropriety. And I think it would be a good way to do that, not to use phones. There'd be no question that you're not communicating with somebody. The whole purpose of these public meetings is that not only do we know everything you've heard, but we have an ability to see everything you considered, and it all is considered and talked about. And everybody in the audience can go, oh, you know what, I want to say something about that, or I want to add something on that, and I can do it by a letter later on. And if somehow you're considering any kind of factor that hasn't been shared with the public, then they can't do that. And so that's what those rules are about. The district are a member of the Special District Association. And so anytime I come up against something unusual, and certainly texting at a meeting is a new issue, I typically connect with Ron Downs, who's the general counsel at the Special District Association. And I did that on this issue, and he agrees with my advice that it would be best to avoid any appearance of impropriety and just use a paper packet with the agenda, and don't use your phones, even for personal things, because we'd hate, if we ever got into some sort of litigation on this, either the court or the other side would get a look at everything to decide that you made the correct assessment of what was business stuff versus what was private stuff. And we just would rather you not ever be put in a position where your private stuff gets to get looked through by a judge or something like that. So I think that's pretty sound advice. Any questions on that? If not, I'll move on to the second item. Okay, so the second item, there was a request for a fee waiver or a fee reduction, and there's a kind of a set of rules that deal with needing to have policies to be able to set fees for copying or staff time to provide information. We considered the request, and some of the rules surrounding whether fee waivers are appropriate include if the information sought is in the general public's interest, right? Not just a specific interest or somebody's narrow interest, but beneficial to the whole general public. The district's leadership considered the different things that I showed them in terms of here's what you ought to be looking at and thinking about in terms of making a decision on a fee waiver. And as a result of that, superintendent declined to issue a waiver, and we communicated that. And then the person who sought it asked for a bunch of questions. We really don't have to go through a question and answer session with the person who's seeking the waiver. We just have to follow the rules internally and then communicate. One of the things that we did answer, however, was we explained to the person asking for the fee waiver that there's a procedure beyond just us. And it's not really with the board, it's really the district attorney. Most people wouldn't know this, but if public records requests are refused, the person who you appeal it to is the district attorney for the county. Well, similarly, a fee waiver refusal or denial is also appealed to the district attorney. So the person seeking that made an appeal to Brad Berry, who's the district attorney. Mr. Berry and his office requested information from the district through me, and I provided some additional information. The district attorney's office also gave the appellant an opportunity to provide additional information, and obviously gave them what I provided as additional information. And so the district attorney took it under advisement, having obtained 2 different communications from the appellant and 1 communication from us. And fortunately, I just learned this afternoon that the district attorney upheld our denial, so refused the fee waiver. And there's still another procedure. If the person's dissatisfied with that, they can file a circuit court action. But as of this afternoon, that appeal was denied. Any questions about that?
No, don't believe so.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next we have Ryan Storfa with the Chehalem Valley BMX.
Yeah.
Hello.
I just want to give a year-end update on the track. We've got some new board members that I don't know if you guys are really familiar with, like what the track is, how it operates and everything. So just a quick overview. So previous meetings I've heard some mention of BMX bikes on the trails and stuff. Just want to call out, we only race at the track. There is no riding BMX bikes on trails. So exclusively at Chehalem Valley BMX down at Young Park. Our racers range from 2-year-olds on striders up to 60-year-old grandparents. Mostly they're between 4 and 10 years old. So we've got a pretty good group of 4 and 10-year-olds. We have a big group of mom and dads out there. If you guys want to get out there and try it, there's some motorbikes. We'll see you this weekend. From an accessibility standpoint, we're pretty affordable. We have, like I said, a big fleet of loaner bikes and helmets that are free to use on race day. The races themselves are $10, and that can be cut down further if the parent takes a corner marshal position at a race just for volunteering. There are 300 sanctioned tracks in U.S. and Canada, 10 in Oregon. You have to be sanctioned by USA BMX in order to hold events, so we were one of 10. We were sanctioned in 1999, and we've had our 501c3 status since 2010. All improvements, so if you ever go down to the track, everything you see there, from the buildings to the work we've done, is from donations, grants, race revenue, and volunteer labor. The best year that we had was in 2021. We had post-COVID bubble, a lot of people out on bikes because everything else was shut down. We had 2,200 people attend races, 91 new members. Since then, the average attendance in Oregon, Washington, California is down 45%. This year at Chehalem, we tied our attendance record from 2021. We had 170 kids go through beginner league, and 131 of them converted to new members, so we beat our new membership by 40. And that is 21st in the country out of 300 plus tracks. And we have 20 more kids that are in the queue that we haven't been able to get in this year, so hopefully January we'll get them in. From the statewide competition, so every track gets points as they race and as they bring in new members and they race. We are second in the state. That's the best. I think the best we ever finished before this year is 4th. And so with that high finish, we will get more big races next year. So we'll have a regional qualifier in May, and then our state qualifier will be in July. We've got 2 double pointers that we haven't scheduled yet. That will bring several hundred people to Newburgh to race those events. From an income and project standpoint, we had a pretty good year. We brought in $19,000 in grants, over $17,000 in donations and business sponsorships. The day that we had our lapathon going on, kids go out and raise money around the neighborhood and then ride for an hour and a half on the track. Between the lapathon and the race, we were all setting up and teaching kids how to ride bikes and stuff. And a guy was walking his dog through the park and came up and was so impressed he wanted to give us a donation. And I'm thinking he's going to give us $20. He handed us $500 out of his pocket. Wow. So that was sort of speaks to how the whole year went. We're racing full year now. We've got all the corners paved. We put down 65 tons of asphalt with all volunteer labor. It's heavy stuff. 65 tons with wheelbarrows and shovels and rakes and skid steers. So if you ever go down there, just walk up to the face of one of those and look up and just imagine pushing a plate compactor all the way up that. This is a lot of work. Projects that we've got coming up. Casey spoke to this a little bit at the last meeting. We want to put in lights so we can race a little bit more in the shoulder season. They wouldn't be on past 9 o'clock. It's basically just to keep our current race schedule. We're done by 9, even in the summertime. We would like to pursue grants to maybe do lights in the skate park and the BMX track, because sometimes it's easier to get grants if you've got a wider audience that you're catering to. So we've had one contractor out giving an estimate, but that's going to be a big ticket item, probably $100,000. So big grants that we're going for there. Start gate, the one we have now is very loud and can be dangerous if you get foot underneath it. So we're looking at some safer start gates. Those are probably going to be in the range of $20,000 to $40,000. Very quiet too, so the neighbors will like that. Retaining walls, turn 2 needs probably 15 to 20 of those eco blocks, so we're trying to secure some of those. If anybody has connections for eco blocks or transportation of them, that would be very helpful. And then a new shipping container. So we're kind of spilling out running out of storage, so we need a place to put all of our loaner bikes. The plan, or the hope, is once CPRD builds a permanent toilet over the dog park, we can take the spot where the toilets are now and plop a shipping container there and use that to store all of our loaner bikes. But that's pending a few moving pieces, so definitely interested in the progress of the toilets down there. So that's pretty much where we are now. The light contractor that we had out was talking about maybe having to go back to the transformer, so we'll work with Casey and some of the staff on that if we have to do that. Definitely get permission before any grants get written or work gets done. So I think that's about it. So thank you.
Great work, very
Okay.
impressive.
I got a couple questions really quick. How many of those kids are in district? Do you have a,
In Newburgh?
live in our district?
So the attendance, the closest tracks to us are Molalla and up north, Wayne, Washington. So we get people from Portland metro area down to Salem that come race us. I think like 20% of our rider base is from Newburgh and another 20% is from Sherwood. And then the remaining 60% is sort of scattered all around the Portland metro area, and we have 5 or 10 racers from Vancouver.
Great. I really appreciate the work. I saw you guys out there working and doing that, and it was just been awesome. The only other question I have, and I don't know, I guess you check with staff, is if we light the facilities, skate park, and that means noise at night, and that carries in that
Yeah.
bowl down there. So it's something that I'm sure the staff has thought about, and you guys need to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, in the summertime, it doesn't get dark until 9:30, and there's
Right.
kids out there on the skate park. We wouldn't be any later than that.
Okay.
So.
Our softball program, during our softball games, they can have the lights on until 10. So that's the city ordinance on that.
Good to know. Thank you.
Also, I want to mention, have you checked with Musco Lighting?
Have not.
I can give you their contact.
Okay.
I'm Julie Peterson, and so I'd be happy to help you with that. But they've done a lot of our lighting on similar.
MUSC, what is it?
Yeah, MUSCO.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, citizen input, I'm gonna go off the sheet here. We have our standard time limit, and what I asked is name and address, or at least your general area if you're in district, when you speak. First, we have Matt Dolphin.
I need to press anything here.
Yeah, we'll pick you up.
Matt Dolphin, I'm on Chehalem Mountain. I'm a district taxpayer. At your October 26, 2023 meeting, I alerted the board that you did not include a proper date in your recent decision to ban bicycles from one of our largest parks. I did this in good faith, in a good faith effort to help CPRD avoid future issues that will likely result from this kind of sloppy policymaking. Absent clarification through a proper board action, there would be a bicycle-sized hole in your regulations that will likely be challenged. So I'd like to thank Jason Fields for attempting to clarify the date by making a new motion during the October meeting. His motion was seconded by discussion initiated by Matt Smith. The timestamp on that is 1 hour and 35 minutes. According to CPRD board policies, I quote, "A motion on which a second is not made, but where discussion begins, is deemed seconded by the member wishing to address it." By discussing the motion, Matt implicitly seconded it. After Jason's motion and Matt's second, other board members were not given an opportunity to speak, nor were they allowed to vote on the matter. Instead, the chair unilaterally decided to push the meeting toward other topics, almost as if he was the king of CPRD rather than merely the chair of this board. In our democratic system and under Oregon state law, the only way for a governing board to take action is through a vote. Individual board members cannot unilaterally amend or clarify an already passed motion without a vote. The chair doesn't have extra special powers to make decisions or act on the board's behalf without a vote. The chair's main duty is facilitating the deliberation and voting process, something, unfortunately, the chair failed to do in this instance. So the public's now left wondering about the status of the motion. Is the board in favor of Jason's new motion to ban bikes in our largest park on November 1st, 2023, or not? We, the people, cannot read your minds. The only way to effectively turn what is in your mind into a real policy is through a well-formed motion, second, and vote. It's the core part of your job. I again encourage you, I urge you, I plead with you to get adequate training through the Special District Association of Oregon so that you can do it well. I'm not here to dispute your choice to get kids on bicycles out of our park and send them to ride at the dump. I'm simply asking that if you do, please do it following this board's own written policies and Oregon state law. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Justin Alderman.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to request to go after all your citizens and other.
You're the last on the list.
Oh, all
Yep.
right. That makes it easy, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I find myself oddly in a position for the third time, and the third time I've attended any meeting of your body testifying, which is, not common as a journalist. But it is my effort and interest to continue to seek information that is relevant, I believe, to the public. And as journalists, we play a critical role in finding facts and providing government accountability and transparency. Is a cornerstone of the role that we have as journalists. And I spoke much to this during the first meeting I attended back in September. I've also repeatedly implored this board to take some action, as I will implore the final time this evening. Counsel for CPRD spoke on this matter this evening under public participation identifying as citizen concerns. I believe that the agenda item, first and foremost, does not comply with Oregon Public Meetings Law, and I will be proceeding with filing a formal grievance in accordance with House Bill 2805, which was passed recently this year, which now authorizes the Oregon Government Ethics Commission to have oversight not just of executive session, but of other compliance with Oregon Public Meetings Law. Oregon Public Meetings Law requires that topics clearly identify the topic to be discussed. And the fact that multiple items of completely different context were lumped under this agenda item is completely inappropriate and doesn't meet the requirements of actual notice under Oregon Public Meetings Law. I hope that that will prompt a response for the board to take action and ensure that your officials prepare appropriate agenda items to ensure that all members, regardless of their position on issues, are able to be informed, and especially members of the media. Further, for the record, I want to make clear that our publication, Equestrian Media Group, is requesting of CPRD to be notified of any public meetings moving forward in accordance with Oregon statute, which provides that members of the media be provided specific notice of such meetings. The next thing I want to address is Mr. Bridges highlighted the disposition of our appeal, which I filed with the district attorney for Yamhill County. In that process, I do want to point out that CPRD's response, despite being included and requested by the district attorney to provide a response, took well beyond 7 days. The district attorney themselves had 7 days to typically provide an order, as outlined in Oregon law regarding the petition. Furthermore, I found it extremely disingenuous, and I think this board should further look into the process that went about with the district attorney. And while the district attorney clearly did not rule in our favor, I don't believe that necessarily sets and outlines the position that the board might take, or that your own citizens might take when it comes to providing public transparency and accountability. Small niche news organizations, including in your own community, continue to struggle in Oregon with excessive and arbitrary fees. But on that point, and this is the biggest point, as I brought to your attention an email and wanted to provide this evening for full transparency and also to your constituents, is the fact that in September we filed a public records request, which was in accordance with this, quote, policy, that was supposed to identify who you submit records requests with in accordance with ORS 192.324 subsection 7. Additionally, that same subsection outlines that fees are supposed to be explained and outlined within that policy. This policy says nothing of that nature. It simply says cost to fulfill public records are based on factors including the amount of staff time that it will take to complete, duplication or paper or electronic records. CPRD will review the request and calculate a good faith cost estimate based on the information available. This was specifically provided by Ms. Ricker, during that process of requesting this material, and that came after initially submitting a records request and believing that the estimates were a bit arbitrary. We then ultimately started expressing that we would indeed appeal to the district attorney in October prior to your October board meeting. However, during your October board meeting, the board was addressed by staff and explained that your policy has been unchanged. It's been the same way for all this time. And in your packet, which we didn't know at the time, was a public records policy provided to you. And on the record, it was explained by your staff. Again, the policy hadn't changed. It's been consistent. It's been that way. However, the policy in your packet, which is this one, differs extremely from this policy, which was originally provided to us in September. Not only does it now try to make...
For some reason, our timer didn't go off, but try to wrap it up in the next 30 seconds.
Sure, thank you. And I would request just some leeway considering the addressment by Mr. Bridges on our issue this evening that was not properly identified. It makes an attempt to address these fee issues. Now, this has happened all at a time that the board was clearly making efforts to address the policy. So it seems clear that staff has arbitrarily taken an effort to not only amend this policy, but it goes further, and I hope the public, regardless of your position on any issue, is that during a request from a member of the media, your counsel submitted this modified policy, and it explained that this was the policy, which was not indeed the policy at the time that we submitted our public records requests. I think this shows a blatant effort of either staff arbitrarily modifying policy and working in an effort that is clearly not in good faith or in transparency with public interest, or this board had backdoor conversations that violated our public speaking's law and did authorize the amendment of this policy. I don't believe the latter. So if the latter is not true, I hope this board would take immediate action to address this issue, because I believe this is a fundamental issue when a public body and officials will go to that extent to try to subvert efforts by members of the media to get transparency on what a public body is doing. So again, I will implore this board to again take prompt action, and despite the ruling that Mr. Bridges said was fortunate, which I don't see how that would be fortunate for your constituents to have public access, and furthermore, you probably spent more money on legal counsel to address the appeal than the cost of the public records. So again, I implore you, take action, direct staff to waive fees. You have that authority, you have that discretion, and I think your constituents would thank you. And that's precisely why this issue is being addressed in proposed amendments in Senate Bill 417 to ensure that requests from members of the media are inherently considered in the public interest. It's disingenuous, and Mr. Bridges made an argument, which I hope you would look into, in the appeal that equestrian media group's requests were not in the interest of the public and were made for special interests of equestrians. Let me be clear, our publication, if you look at it, has repeatedly addressed issues and of negative positions on equestrian organizations. We're not here to support or advocate.
We do have to wrap it up for time.
So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
And again, I implore someone to, and this board to move to waive fees and hopefully in the longer term, ultimately address these issues on your policy.
May I ask a question, Board?
Yeah, go ahead.
So are you waiting for something from us right now? I mean,
yes, we still have outstanding requests, which the appeal was denied earlier today by the district attorney.
Can I ask what is the request?
The request is for a handful of emails, and other, primarily other communication that I believe we're waiting on. I would have to go back and look again specifically. We did also submit a third request, which was rejected because apparently not only was this policy amended, but I've also included they also added a new form. And the modified policy addresses and says you now have to use this form. So clearly, there's been a lot of changes made sometime in October of this entire records policy process.
So I can just state to the fact that I know that the board did not change the policy. We did discuss it. I don't know if anyone else on the board has any comments on this, or if staff has any comments, because there's two issues. One is the waiver request, and then the other is that the form changed. I'm assuming this is an online form. So I don't know if there's any comment on that for clarification purposes at all. No? Okay.
Can I ask how much are we asking to waive? Do we have a cost?
I think part of it is process, right? Like, I mean, the staff has X amount of time, and if you have tons of people coming in to do records requests, you literally almost have to hire somebody to take care of them in order for the other person to be able to do their jobs. I don't know.
Have we
gotten a lot
got
of
an
public
estimate?
The denial was for $226 for 7 hours of staff time.
Look, I'd like to make a motion. Let's waive this, get him whatever he needs, and let's move on. Will that satisfy you?
But Jason, this it sets precedent. I think we have to have a conversation about how we're going to go ahead and decide to waive or not waive. To make a decision on one group right now is not good policy. We have to be able to determine who will provide waivers to if we want to do that.
Okay.
So our request is temporary until you guys address these issues and hopefully have a policy that understands that media plays a unique role in special interest groups. But what I'm trying to express, and it was clear in Mr. Bridges' testimony today, and also in his statement, that it was believed that we're a special interest group, or that we're engaging in advocacy, and we are not. At the end of the day, we want the facts. I don't care if it supports equestrians or doesn't. That is our role as journalists, and we will report on the facts, regardless of whether they.
Okay. Motion's been made. Are there any seconds?
I'm pulling my motion.
Motion has been withdrawn.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say we can move on at this point. If there's any other further discussion that the board would like to add later, we can add it to the agenda if necessary. Okay, our next action item is approval of district legal services. Okay. So I don't know, staff, do you want to provide anything, or do we want to just?
Yeah, we had two submittals. I put them in your board packet. In the past, because the staff works with legal counsel, the boards in the past has left it up to me to make the selection for the legal counsel. I'm offering it to this board. If you desire that, I'll do that again. If you also want to make a motion on any one of the two, you can do that as well. So that will be the choices.
Any discussion on the board? We have two proposals, two different firms.
Well, in looking at the request for proposals and then comparing it against the two proposals, there's a couple of things that we have to be concerned about right now. One, this went out in September, and the one party went ahead and put a proposal in. And then I think you asked Dawn to get more because it wasn't enough, which means we went back out with the same proposal, got another firm who could see what the other person put in the September packet. So that's not good. Right off the top.
I don't believe that.
In September, it was in the packet. The Brown Tarlow Bridges was in the packet.
Well,
nonetheless, even independent of that, if you're looking at the two, based on the criteria that's here, it appears that the prices are pretty much similar. They're going to be a few dollars here or there on the other side. But one of the things that it really asks for or gives some weight to was special district experience and then within the district. And to me, Brown, Tarlow, and Bridges have been doing this for an awful long time. I would like to know how much they cost per month, because the other firm is saying that they're gonna have to come up to speed, would take 20 hours a month at that, whatever that rate is. So, I don't know, for me, I feel like the Brown, Tarlow, Bridges is a much better proposal based on the RFP that we presented.
I'll just go down the line. Do you have any comments at all?
I saw what Lisa saw about the prices. They're close, one's slightly cheaper, but then there's the added time and catching up. However, I am interested in the idea of getting fresh opinions on some of the things that we're looking at.
Well, I looked at it and I was impressed with Sherman, and I'm interested in looking at other choices. So, other than what we have.
Jim?
Yeah, Don Clemens stated he'd like to continue with John Bridges, and I look at it from a staffing standpoint, to where the superintendent is going to be working with the legal counsel most of the time. I'd approve Don's recommendation to keep working, because I'm going to ask this question of Gail and of Lisa. How often have you worked with our district attorney, if at all? I mean, as far as Park and Recreation District, duties or anything like that. Have you had any correspondence with them concerning motions or nothing? So really, the person that's going to be working with this person most of the time is going to be the superintendent and or his staff. The district's had a long history of hiring within our district if possible. And that includes contractors, suppliers, and I assume we would want to do the same with our legal, because I like, we want to, it's a hometown thing. We want to keep our taxpayers' money within our district as much as possible. I understand that something like the Cultural Center, a big contract, we can't, but while I was on staff, most of the time, that was the case. We always looked to try to keep the money that we spend, whether it be on help or contractors, within our district. And it's a lot easier to talk face-to-face with the person, and we can do that with our current legal counsel by just driving down the street. He's also located in our community, he also knows our community, and is active with many community-minded organizations such as Chamber, Rotary, and others. So he's an active individual within our community that's involved with programs within our community. And I think that's important for him to understand the district. You can bring somebody in from, Eugene if you'd like, but do they really understand the district, the people that live here? I think that's key when we're looking at someone that we want to hire in this position. Lisa already looked at the financials, and I looked at them too. And I think for the fellow that they were recommending, and it was like $30 difference. But then I looked at the help, the paralegals, and there was a big difference. And so we really need to look at that. And also, one thing that I've always been pleased about, and I've worked with this, I was with the district as an employee for 38 years, and when they felt that there was something, they said, look at Shale Park and Recreation District, we could do this, but this is another way you can do that that's going to be cheaper, and you don't need to use us. And I think that's an important thing for a law firm to say, versus, yeah, we'll just do it. And they've said that, and I think even, I'm not sure all the board members were here, but I think that it's really important to know that. And we've been with them for 40 years, and I've known all the different principals throughout that time, and they've all been very, very supportive of our district and some people may not like some things that our attorneys do at times, but that is usually dictated by the board or the superintendent. So if we ask them to do something and they tell us, well, they tell us, okay, we're gonna go ahead and do that for you. Whether we like it or not, or whether the public likes it or not, somebody may not, but they go ahead and do that. So I think that, I think we should stay with the current firm. As a board member, I don't want to change just for the sake of change. And that's kind of my take on it. I really want to keep, this is a district and work with people that are within our district, including people that we hire.
Can I ask a question? Dawn, have we ever ran into a problem where we've got conflicts of interest where he's working with us and he's also working with somebody else?
Yes.
That,
With
and
the,
that's,
with
go
the
ahead.
hospital and others, even prior to John, they always declared the conflict of interest, and they made us aware of it. They gave us choice. But after they'd done that, we could retain them, or either we could go with other counsel. They always put us over, like with the hospital and others, they always put us over them. They would represent us rather than represent them, which they get more money when they do that, as he says. But they always, because we were a client for so many years, they always put the preference there. But we were made aware of that. They always explained that.
I think there's a lot of value to what Jim has to say about working with somebody who's worked with us for a long time, somebody who's entrenched in the community. However, that is both a benefit and a detriment. And I truly believe that we should consider working with somebody outside of our district where we're not going to run into that.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, like, what has happened that would say that there's any problem? Like, where has there, I've been on this board for 6.5 years now, and there's never been a legal problem in 6.5 years. And they don't charge us unless we need them. You noticed he left, so he's only charging for the small period of time that he was here, so he doesn't end up sitting through a meeting for no apparent reason. They understand changing for the sake of change is not a good enough reason. It really is a poor reason. And if I'm right, and it was in that September board packet, we set ourselves up for a real problem.
I've got one other comment too, is that, and I saw this in the folks from Salem, they own everything that they do. So for the last 40 years, law firms own everything that they do, okay? And so they have 40 years of experience and history working with our district. So if we have to go back and find something through the law firm, with this new law firm, what are they gonna do? They're not gonna know that information. We know the information, we can go to this firm and do it. Otherwise, we're gonna have to pay to get it from that firm. And so that's something you need to consider too. Whether we had 40 years with the Salem firm or 40 years with the Newburgh firm, we would have to do that. So just think about that when you make these decisions, because we're gonna end up paying more if we have to go back historically and find information, legal information. Just so you, and you may not know that, and that's another reason. I think it's gonna cost us a lot more down the line. And I just don't wanna do that to our taxpayers.
For no reason. I mean, if there was a reason to replace them, if they'd done something, if there was some issue out there, I think it would be great to go ahead and try to see what the other alternatives are. But there's nothing happened, except we want to change, and I think that change will cost us a lot of money.
Well, I do think it's something that the board should vote for. Are there any motions?
I'd like to make a motion that we change to Sherman and Sherman.
Proposal number 2.
Excuse me, yes.
Okay, motion's made. I second. Motion's made and a second. Any further discussion? being no further discussion, all those in favor of adopting proposal number 2 for district legal services, say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
It's 3-2. Did you get the,
Who was the second?
okay.
Who was the second?
That was, I seconded, Fields made the motion, Fields, Smith, and Bizzo voted aye.
Really good for the district.
Okay. Next is discussion on ad hoc committee rules. This is something that I know that we've been, it's been on the agenda at least one time before, and it's been also a discussion item. We have, I know Don put together some general rules. I also tried to put together I think I called it Article 7, so I don't know. I think everyone got it via email or an electronic copy. I'm not sure if there's also printed copies. I think it's become very clear that there's been changes in the law with respect to committees. Specifically, committees are now official legal meetings. They're to be recorded, televised. We're now doing all the committee meetings on premises. So it certainly makes sense that we have committee rules that are consistent with kind of a general legal standard. I know any council, board, or special district will have council rules or board rules. So I believe it's very important to adopt committee rules that are similar to the rules that we have for ourselves. They revert to Robert's Rules of Order, for example. I think we had a recent meeting where we didn't know if we had a quorum, for example. We don't know currently what the length of the appointments are. At least that's my understanding, as is. So I think, that has to be clarified too. I think there's just a lot that we need to do to kind of make sure the committees know what the rules are. They need direction, and then we as a district need to make sure that we're assuring that all committees are done in compliance with public meeting laws as well. So I know there's a lot of information in there, a lot to read, so I'm expecting we'll have quite a bit of conversation on this. Whoever wants to jump in first, feel free.
Well, I actually like what you put together. I think that this is a good idea. I think we absolutely need to have rules as a parent if we watch some of these meetings that have gone on. And I think we should follow this to the letter.
Is there a minimum number of members that a committee has, or is that just, because it flexes, we have different committees with different numbers on them.
I don't believe we don't have anything that outlines the minimum number of people per committee, right? So I think the Trails Committee is much larger. Of course, they have a larger scope, which makes sense.
I think they started out at 14 and then became more manageable as they got smaller.
Right, yeah. So that's something that I know I didn't address in my amendment that I added for the committee rules. But I think that's the type of thing that we probably should think about. Do we want to have no guidelines for numbers, or do we want to have a target number, like a committee should be minimum of 5 people, but as many as 11 or something like that? Obviously, odd numbers is what we shoot for. But these are the things I think we really need to think through. I know the idea was given that we could potentially send these to council once we work through them today and have a legal look at it, make sure that it all makes sense, there's no errors, there's no contradictions in the rules we pass, and then bring it back at the next meeting to officially pass. But I mean, any ideas that we have, anything that should be taken away or added. I think this is a good time to talk it all out and to try to, try to come to some consensus instead of just, knocking this subject down the road for another meeting.
I think that we've got on here eligibility, that a board member, or a member of the board, that's of these, not of the board, but of these committees,
Yeah.
must live and reside in the boundaries of Chehalem Park and Recreation District. I think that we should do that. I think they should, absolutely should live in our district. Now, I think we can have an exception if they've actually been an employee of CPRD, because they have something extra to offer. So and they've got skin in the game, they know our facilities, so I think it's a good idea to do.
So that would be an exception to the in-district requirement
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
if prior employee of district, okay? I know that the budget committee is, it's a statutorily advised committee, so the 3-year terms are standard for that. In my document, I put 2-year terms for ad hoc committees. I think that's what I've seen from other boards, councils, governments. The 2-year term was pretty standard. And so I think that's reasonable. Obviously, if anyone has any concerns with that, I'm all ears. I do like the eligibility exception. I think the example would be Quentin on the Trails Committee, for example. He's a prior employee of the district. Obviously has like you said, a history, vested interest, so that makes sense.
But doesn't your eligibility already allow for that? I mean, it reads, the board may appoint members outside the district except on the Chehalem Park and Recreation Budget Committee. So I think I think what you've put here takes care of that.
Yeah, this was the section that staff had already drafted. So I don't know, was your thought that you wanted to actually limit it?
Absolutely. I think it should be limited to people who actually live in our district. Unless they have been an employee.
Yeah, but you might have somebody that is an expert as well that would really help the district.
So that person could come in and they could be in a Zoom call and they could give advice to the committee, but they wouldn't be a member.
But if okay. I don't care.
You're saying a voting
Yeah.
member.
I think you limit yourself. I mean, I think as a rule of thumb, it should always be somebody from in the district, but I think when you limit yourself so strictly that you can never have anybody outside unless they're an employee, you could end up in a place where you're like, oh, damn, we gotta go turn it around and change it,
Well, I wouldn't want somebody from West Lynn, okay, or Wilsonville deciding what we're going to be doing.
I agree with you, but I'm just saying, by rule of thumb, yes, it would always be in district unless the board decides that somebody outside of the district would be beneficial to the district to be on that. That's all I'm saying. I agree with you. I definitely think district things should be done by district people, but there may be times when we need it to be a little bit more flexible, just like you say with Quentin, who has done so much work for the district
Absolutely.
already, right? So
So-
it's just leaving it as a, yes, it has to be unless the board approves a special consideration.
And I would be okay with that. I would be okay if the standard rule is you must live in the district, and there could be exceptions voted on by the board.
Okay. So you're fine with the wording if that's the intent, and there doesn't need to be, in your opinion, additional restrictions?
Right.
Okay, understood. Okay. Any thoughts on terms?
I think 2 or 3. I think 3 years probably is a good time, or a good average.
How long do the projects typically take? Like if you put a committee together, it seems like committees come together when there's something that's gonna happen, right?
3 to 5 years is what it looks like.
Right, so do you could be just like getting right there and then you have a whole new committee, right? So I don't know, I mean, maybe you stagger them, whatever you wanna
Well,
do,
the
but
board
as long as.
gets, I mean, they can apply and the board can reappoint, so it's not like
Okay.
you're.
I think 3 years would be a good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, then 3 years
Yeah.
sounds good to me, as long as we can
So
reappoint.
3, okay. The other thought that I had, and this is something that I think is important, and I'm open to ideas, but right now I don't know if we even know when a lot of these committee members were appointed. We'd probably have to go through a lot of information to get everyone's date. So we don't know, has someone been on a committee for 2, 3, 4 years already? Secondly, these committees have changed, one, with the public meeting law requirements, two, with if we do actually pass rules, a lot of the folks on the committees may not be in agreement with the rules, or they might say this is not what we signed up for. And in fact, it seems it's concerning to me if we do revise these rules, if they haven't had previously read it, or if they haven't showed agreement to that in their application, I'm concerned that the rules could simply be challenged or put to the wayside. So my idea would be we start fresh and have the committees reapplied, everyone reapply for their committee rules, knowing that most of the people currently on the committee are going to reapply. But we create a document with the application that says, I have read the committee rules, I hereby agree, sign, so that everyone's on the same page and we have a fresh start.
So just to ground level their terms is what we're doing.
Right.
So
And then we
have
know where the terms begin and so on and so forth. That's the idea I had. I mean, I'm open to other ideas. I don't see how else we do it in a way that makes sense.
Obviously need to have them sign that they've read it and agree to it. I mean, that's a,
Right.
Well, like you said, there's these new rules. I think we should be sending out not just these committee rules, but the laws and why we're doing it. But it seems like there's a lot of people that have really committed to volunteering time for this district. I think just saying you can't be on it anymore, you have to reapply, might not sit, I mean, it might be received poorly. But I think what you could do is say, based on new laws, we have this new set of rules that all of you guys are gonna have to sign off to because we have to have it. And if you're not willing to sign off on it, then we're gonna have to ask you to leave the committee. Because you're right, if we're gonna establish the rules, we need to make sure that they're following them. But at the same time too, I don't know, I just don't want it to seem really negative for people that have already been volunteering. So if they will just, you could get them to, we could create a page that says, I understand the new rules with which we are going to be, and then have it dated or something, so that they know that they agreed to it. So there's nothing that they can do at that point. Somebody might challenge this no matter what, but at the same time, I'm just trying for people trying not to make too much work too.
would it accomplish the same thing to do exactly what you said, but word it that if you accept this, starts your 3-year term?
Yeah,
Does that
right, exactly.
accomplish
That
what you
would
want?
probably be helpful because
We-
then they wouldn't be saying, but he was on for 2 years, and I was on for 1, and,
Right.
you just.
I guess the only concern I have with that is if someone's already been serving for 4, 5, 6 years, I know I don't have that information. And so I think there should be terms, and typically terms of committees are not longer than the elected boards that they serve for. That's a general rule in government.
But I think that 3-year period is good. You know what I mean? You're starting something new, so starting the time clock seems like, at the same time, seems less like anybody can argue.
Don, Cat, don't we have that information for each committee on the when folks join each one of those committees? We have that information,
Yes,
right?
it's there, it's on the website, and I have all their applications in my office.
So we have it.
So we do have all the applications still saved?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I don't mind you pitching in and telling us that as we're walking through this, just so we know.
Thanks.
Actually, this is a good, when you're done.
And
I
then
think
the
I
other
wanna
thing
open
is
this
with
up.
committees, you know, I like to ask people, hey, will you come out and help us do this trail, or help us do this flower bed, or help us do this? Committees can become quite cumbersome, and they can create bad feelings. So I just want to make sure that whatever we do, it doesn't become so cumbersome that people aren't interested in doing it, and they will drop off quickly from my experience, and then we won't be looked upon favorably as a district. So we really want to be careful with all these committees that are created. And the other thing that I thought about on this is that when we create these committees, and I'm not saying they're bad, I think public input is huge. I think it's really important. Volunteerism is the cornerstone, I think, of the United States, of America. But you're also asking our staff, who are pretty minimal already as far as the number of staff we have, to come to each one of these committee meetings and then take the staff time and then follow up with all the stuff that happened and so on and so forth. So, and then also we have our new technology here, and we have to make sure that someone knows how to run that, and maybe we have to bring in somebody extra. So I think we really need to look hard at how we're doing the committees, and if we need or don't need committees. I think we need to look hard at that, just from my experience. Because I used to, I'm sorry I always go back, but I would ask a fellow like you, hey, I need some help. You know some other people that can come down here and do this, and we do the job, and we get it done, and we move on. And that's all a lot of people want to do. Most people, except for all of us, of course, don't like meetings. Okay, and so the reality is, it's just we just need to. See where I'm coming from? So we just need to understand that when we're working with the public.
That's good. Well, I'm going to throw this, since you mentioned staff, who've attended these meetings, do any of you have any comments? Because I think it is, like he said, that's a lot of time, it's a lot of energy. Do you guys have any thoughts? Because these rules obviously are going to impact how you guys operate and function as well.
We just had a situation with the pickleball advisory committee where a member, how do I explain it? He sent an email to another committee member that stated that in terms of CPRD staff, we need a few mass killings, metaphorically, to turn this situation and incident around. And that was unacceptable, in my opinion. So I can see where there are rules that are needed, because that type of behavior doesn't help the pickleball community. It doesn't help CPRD. It was hard for me, to be quite honest. This happened about 3 months ago. And it was hard for me to sit across from him for 3 meetings, knowing that he had made that statement. And we were there to support him. You know, I, as a staff member, I was there to support that committee member. And you know, his feelings were really, I don't know. I'm not quite sure, you know, he went a different direction on that committee. And so because of that, there was so much staff time spent trying to get that committee back on track. And I felt so sorry for the other members. It was a very difficult situation. I think they didn't feel safe. And it just took a lot of staff time for me and for Gail and everybody else on the committee to deal with one individual that maybe didn't have the same goals and purpose as we did. So as a result of that, I created for everyone the Chehalis Park and Recreation District like goals and common objectives, and handed those out, and just with expectations of what do we expect from our committee members? And then what can the committee members expect from us? And I felt that was very well received. We're still working on that. I think that's in the board packet, and so we're hoping that the board will look at that. But I can see both sides. You know, I do see that the volunteerism is very important. But then the other side of that is there do need to be some rules, because there are those people that take those committees to a different level and maybe don't have those common objectives that everybody else does. Sorry if that was too much information, but it's just, it's new.
Is that member still on your committee?
Well, we voted, we had committee members voted and on his removal, and there were enough to remove him from the board, and we were going to present that to the CPRD, or we were going to remove him from the advisory committee, and we were going to give those votes to the CPRD board so that they could take action if they wanted to on that particular person. We did have a meeting last Tuesday, and that was explained to the committee member, and his comment was that if the board decided to remove him, that he would resign or he would comply. So,
Do we have information on who that is?
yes.
Was this to be discussed at another point in our agenda
I
tonight?
don't think so. I
Was-
thought it was kind of like, I thought I would tie that into what we were,
Was this to be on next month's agenda then for us to vote?
I was gonna actually ask the board I was just gonna ask the board when we talked about this, if it was something that we should be discussing tonight, or
Okay.
if we want to put it on the next.
Okay, well, yeah, I'd say hold your thought on that, because I don't want to get off track from specific committee rules, because I know we have a lot to work through.
Yeah, I do want to
But
discuss
then-
it tonight, I do want to discuss tonight, because we have the
I
chair
do.
also of the
Right.
pickleball committee here.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not tackling that issue.
No, I agree,
during-
but I
yeah.
think that this is a good segue into, okay, what happens on a committee if, and what do we do as a board, and what are the policies if that committee member acts out?
Right.
Which
Well,
has
and-
happened.
And quite frankly, I feel like without rules,
No, I agree, but is that
yeah.
part of this?
Code of conduct
Right.
is what we're talking
Absolutely.
about. Code
Right.
of conduct.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Lisa had a comment.
One of the things I don't see in here that I think might be really helpful is that the committees cannot direct staff to do work. Staff is there to provide information, and I feel like committees are not clear on that. And so if we could add something like that in here.
I
think
think,
he did.
I think it's in my
It is?
amendment, and I don't know if
Okay,
that's not in,
okay,
but
Okay,
it's
as long as it's gonna be considered.
basically the same verbiage that we as a board have, where
Yeah.
we don't come and say, oh, set your thermostat differently, do this,
Right,
do that, we're
Right,
not,
okay, cool.
same.
I saw it in
Appreciate
here.
that.
Right, yeah, okay. We're not gonna take public input at this point, cause we do have you later on the agenda, so don't worry.
It was related to this. but
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
okay.
you'll get your chance, don't worry. Okay, so what I'm hearing is, we like these rules, amend what I have, Kat. I think I put 2 years in there. It sounds like the consensus is everyone likes 3 years, okay? So we'll amend in what's in there. Everything for 2 years is 3, which would be consistent with the budget committee. And then the other thing we discussed, and I wanna make sure we have consensus, is that we're gonna have legal look at it, over the next month, and then bring it back in case there's any verbiage, anything that needs to be amended or adjusted. Then legal can provide that for us. Yeah.
Code of conduct also will be included.
Okay, and I
Yeah,
think
I-
that in my, what I
Yes.
did, I think
Yes.
that covers all of
Okay.
that. And then it even reverts to Robert rules for
Yeah.
anything that's not specifically put in there.
Good
So
enough.
that will address the quorum requirements and all the other,
We'll put that together and get it out
Okay.
to you.
okay. And then the final thing would be, if staff can also work on a form, and this will be part of the new application, but also for current members, that provides them these rules once we do pass them, and they say, I agree to comply with public meeting laws and with the committee rules, sign, and then, so that will be for one document for existing committee members, and then another new document for all new applications, because every new applicant should have it. They should know what they're seeing. You know, the meetings will be here, all that kind of stuff. Okay. And then next month we should have a final product.
So this is the first reading.
Right. This will be basically the first, with the amendments as stated. Yeah. Okay.
That sounds great.
Any other discussion? Anything else we want to? Okay. Next up are SDCs. Don, I think you have something to present for this.
Yeah, I put in your packet what we normally do. It's been the policy of the board every year to do this. The reason is we went almost 20 years without doing anything and keeping the same SDC. Unfortunately, when we got to do the new ones, they were much higher and people became unglued. So we had a real difficulty in getting it accomplished. The board at that time said, let's not go through this again. So each year, let's make sure that you up it and they put into the methodology what that was. In other words, how do we determine the percentage? And the percentage was based on the construction cost increase. That was out of Seattle. We could have went with a lot of things, but most communities in Oregon and Washington use that as their base. I would say probably 90% use that. So we use that. Prior to that, we had used that, but we had 50% of that figure was going to be based on construction in Yamhill County. The difficulty with that is getting the information. It's almost impossible. We tried to get that information from the county and was unable because they had a computer deal and decided. So we just put it in that we'd go strictly with this so that in the future we didn't have that difficulty. So each year I brought forth what that increase is and gave it to the board to review. It's automatically done according to the last board, but what I wanted to do was give you and I gave the other board an opportunity to have input. So you have those figures before you.
So what you're saying is an automatic inflationary increase of 3.96% is basically going to take place.
That's correct.
Well, I'll start off the discussion on this one. I really just don't believe in automatic increases. It's not that I don't believe that sometimes increases are necessary. I do think as a board we should review it. We should determine what our budget is, what the economic climate is, and we should vote on it. So, you know, the resolution that was passed by the prior board to just automatically do it, I just don't think that that's good public policy, in my opinion. So I guess I'll open discussion with that. I don't know if anyone else has any other comments.
You know, when I ran on this thought that we should reduce SDCs, all right? And as I've been working here and looking at what the needs are in our community, I don't think that we can reduce our SDCs at this time. But I don't think that we should have automatic increases. I absolutely believe that we should discuss any increase that we're going to charge. I think that is the fair thing to do. You don't charge more because you can. And the other thing is when it's an automatic increase, look, everybody who sits up here goes, well, it's automatic. No skin off my, yeah, and I don't think that's right. I think we should,
I don't look at that.
well, that's great. That's great. But it's a lot easier when it's automatic and it's not on you and you don't have to discuss, why do we need more money? I think that we should have to discuss it. And I'm not ready to reduce our SDCs or modify them, but I do believe that we absolutely should discuss before we raise them.
And I think that's not a bad thing. However, the only thing I'll say is like these indexes are just like a COLA, right? A cost of living adjustment that whether you like it or not, we live it, right? So somebody's just telling you in this past year, this is how much everything increased in costs. And everybody has the same number. It's not like you're picking some special number. And I mean, in my day job, I do development, and construction is crazy. It's far beyond what a normal increases are. So when you're not going ahead and increasing with what the costs are, your buying power just drops. And the SDCs are only on new units, right? So that could be that for a while you have nothing for a very long period of time, and then all of a sudden you have no money to do the things that you want to do. And that might be okay because at that point housing is slowing down, right? And you don't need more and more and more unless we can come up with some way to do it. But I do think that the reasoning behind indexing it was to make sure that we don't keep losing buying power. It wasn't to just do an automatic rubber stamp. It was because for 20 years they didn't do anything and realized it affects operations at some point because you have to start using the general fund to go ahead and pay for new construction. And that means you have to cut costs operationally. And so it really makes it difficult at the district level, right? So it was not done at the time with anything except we need to make sure we're whole so that we can serve the community the way that we were intended to serve them. And that's the reasoning behind it. And when you take that away, then I think that, it could be we don't like taxes, we don't like taxes, we don't like taxes. And then all of a sudden the things that people want in the community, we have no money to do for them.
And again, people need to understand that the SCCs are paid for new homes. They're not paid for folks that live here because what happens, that already live here, because what happens is, we'd like that new park. The SCCs, the people that moved here, pay for that. Or everyone pays for it, and it's not even in my part of town.
Right.
So that's something to consider too when we look at this. And again, I've been here when we had no money, and we had to dig into our operational. And then people are saying you can't keep the parks up at times. Well, if you dig in the operational, for sure we're not going to keep the parks up, because someone, the other board members or whatever, are going to have a project they're going to want to build, and they're going to take it and they're going to build it, and then we don't have enough, and it's going to come out of our operational costs. So it's a double-edged sword in a lot of ways, but I think that it's something that everyone uses to improve the livability of the community that you're in, and that's why I'm on this board. But I don't disagree with you that let's review it every year, look at it, and see where it's at. I don't have a problem with that, so.
Yeah, I was just gonna make the comment. The good news is, nobody up here has said that they want to reduce SDCs, and nobody has said that they want to change the calculation of SDCs. Basically, I think what we're saying is we want to discuss raising SDCs every year. Before we do it, we want to discuss, do we need the funds?
Now that goes in effect on when in
July, right?
July?
July 1
Yeah.
of 24. We start on this early because the primary reason for that is if you're a developer and you're working with the city of Newburgh, city of Dundee, or Yamhill County, and they tell you one fee, and then come July 1, we spring it that they got a new fee, then all of a sudden the developer is upset. So we give it way out in advance And they've been gracious enough to tell the developers, if you do it before July 1, this is your fee. After July 1, this is your fee.
So we should look at maybe, everyone should take a look at it and ask a lot of questions before, what, January's meeting? So
Well,
those developers have time to take a look at that?
yeah, I would recommend
Yeah, what's your recommendation?
you passing it tonight. If you're satisfied with that, go ahead and pass it tonight so we can get the letters to the cities and the county so that they can be aware of what we have. You have the letters in your board packet that we send out. The reason I did this is I agree with the board each year to review this. Never have I not put it in the board packet. I was told you don't gotta, but I did it anyway because I feel it should be discussed each year, and I'm not opposed to that. And so it's in your board packet.
So it sounds like we have the letter of the resolution and the practice are kind of not jiving up. And so what I would ask, and is if everyone agrees, that you bring a resolution to our next meeting that we can review and vote for that basically says really what you're doing in practice versus what that resolution is. Basically says that we have to approve it.
Right.
We just have to, say, okay, this is 4% this year, like we're doing now, and we're approving it via a vote. I think that's
We'll
just
do a
better.
resolution and put it in the January meeting. And
Can we simply just make a motion that we're going to approve this as is?
yeah,
Yeah.
with the resolution in January.
Yes.
Correct. And then we'll bring the resolution, you can sign it. We'll put the resolution under consent agenda, and that way you can just sign it and we'll be through with it.
Okay.
That'll be a good idea.
So you wanna make a motion?
Yeah, so I make a motion that we simply approve this as is. And then we'll have another meeting in January.
An amended resolution for the automatic increase
Right.
to be changed to a vote.
Correct. The resolution will just say that the board amended it,
Yeah,
and we'll do that.
Perfect.
okay. Did you get that, Kat?
Yes.
Okay, a little messy. Okay, I will second that motion. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Okay, moving on. Item D, discussion on Dundee Elementary School acquisition.
I threw in your packet an action plan. Tonight, we would discuss that to secure funding from the county
Thank you.
by January 1. Hopefully, that will be done. I've outlined the necessary steps on this. I think tonight there's still a lot of vagueness in this whole concept as of today because we don't know how much we're going to get from the county for this endeavor. So I would recommend that we move ahead with this plan to secure this facility. It's an opportunity that I think is available to us right now that this time next year will probably not be available to us. So I wanted to make sure that we had a discussion and direction from the board on which way to go. This facility would be used more as a community learning center. It would be used as a community rec center. It would be used as a community daycare area as well. There is also the possibility that part of the facility would be rented to private groups as well. It's that large. So we still have a lot of work to do. In your packet, I gave you an outline of the facility. I also gave you the application that went into the county for funds for the daycare portion of that particular facility. And just wanted you to be aware of what we had done as of today. And many board members were involved, and I'll just let you speak to that.
So I do have a question before we get into everything else. The letter sent November 17th. This is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's requesting $1.5 million from Yamhill County. I'm presuming that's ARPA funds that they have available specific to daycare.
And we increased that to 2.3.
Okay. And have we received any response from the county?
As of to date, no.
Any informal discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
We met with county commissioners who viewed the facility with us, and not together, but individually. They viewed the facility, and we went over. The school superintendent was also with us when we viewed the facility, and we were able to ask questions and do those type things. So, and I believe, Jason, you were with us, were you not?
I was.
And he can speak a lot about it.
Well, I tell you what, I walked through this school. I don't know if this is going to be a possibility or not. I'm hoping that it will be, because I will tell you that I was asked to attend a meeting with the Yamhill County Commissioners, and ADEC was there, and George Fox was there, Matt Smith was there, as well as Steve Phillips, Newburgh School Superintendent. And I listened to everybody give their ideas about what they'd like to do in order to provide daycare. And I didn't realize before this meeting what a great need there was for daycare in Yamhill County. And so I listened to everybody give their ideas, and I listened to basically ADEC and George Fox talk about what they want to do, but it was 2 to 3 years out. And then I listened to Steve Phillips, and he had an idea of taking 2 classrooms within the Newburgh High School and converting them to a daycare facility. Problem with that is it would be $500,000. It may only be good for 6 months. It might be as good for as much as 2 years. So, you know, it's a lot of money for a short-term gain. And after the meeting adjourned, everybody went out in the hallway, and I was sitting there thinking the whole time while these people were talking, why isn't anybody talking about the Dundee school? Why doesn't somebody buy that school and solve the problem? So I went out and I talked to the George Fox and ADEC people, and I said, have you considered buying the school? And they said, well, you know what? We would like to, but they don't want to sell it to us. They want to put a hotel there. And I was like, okay, who'd you talk to about that? And they said, that guy over there, and it was Steve Phillips. That's who they were talking to. So I went over and I spoke to Steve Phillips, and I said, how would you like to have this school converted to a daycare? He says, I love the idea, Jason. And so I walked back over to the George Fox ADEC people and said, hey, you guys bring your checkbook, it's for sale. It's $3.5 million. And basically what they told me is, well, we'd really like to have a facility on our property. So I think what they are really, I think what they really want to do is help their own employees. And there would be some room for non-employees' children's. So from that moment, I decided, well, this is something that I think is a worthwhile endeavor, and I started calling Mayor of Newburgh. I spoke with county commissioners. I spoke with Dawn. I spoke with different people within CPRD and Julie Peterson. And it is something that we could do. I mean, a lot of people talk about solving this problem. If this is a real problem, CPRD has been providing daycare for at least 39 years. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes, at least 30 or 38. Maybe it's just 38 years. You know what? Dawn was telling me a story that when we first got going, there was 9 different entities that asked for money to do daycare. And of those 9, they all received money, but we're the only ones left in business. And it seems to me that if money was going to be spent, and if we wanted to do something and get something done for the community, this is something that we could have a huge impact in our community and surrounding communities. So, and this, if this works out, we can use this property for lots of things. Beyond what Dawn was saying, there's property right next to it, which is part of the same property, in which we could convert to a pickleball court. That would be a wonderful thing. So I don't know if this is a possibility, but I would like to give Dawn the ability to continue working towards making this happen. I can tell you that I walked through the school, and when I first spoke with Steve Phillips, he says, I wanted to warn you, there's going to be some deferred maintenance. And when he said that, I thought to myself, boy, what does that mean? I didn't know what we would find. Well, we walked through the whole school, and basically what Steve told me is he said, when I was talking about getting rid of the school, it was always about getting rid of it, not saving the school. The school is fabulous, okay? They have children in this thing right now. You could use it as is. Now, it is true that if we have infants in there, we're going to have to make some modifications. But we could use the school as is. The heating, air conditioning system is fairly new. The roof is almost brand new. It has a brand new kitchen in it. It would we could never afford to build this. I got to believe that if we bought just the property, it would cost you $3.5 million or greater. The building would cost you $15 million to build. I mean, this is wonderful. It's already set up with security. It's already set up for kids. It's got a playground. It's right next, and here's the other thing. Because we have Sanders Park right here, and we've got the park across the street, we would own the entire thing, and I just think it would be an enormous benefit to the residents of Dundee and Newburgh. So I'm hoping that this board will decide to move forward on it. I realize that, as we were talking earlier about SDCs and needing money, this is just one of those things that shows you you can't cut the SDCs because there's so many needs for so many groups. We're trying to do our pickleball courts, we're trying to do our tennis courts, we're trying to do our bicycle park. So, but I think this is something that we should really consider.
Can I add just really quick? So we held our summer childcare program at Dundee Elementary last summer, I should say. And we had 160 registrants for that program. And we were concerned at the beginning because we were unsure if people in Newburgh would take their children during the summer, drive to Dundee, which is essentially, if they don't work on this, if they were working over in the metro area, they wouldn't, it wouldn't be convenient. But we were so pleased with the response to that facility. and it worked out great. It was a fantastic facility for us, and we were very appreciative that we were able to use it. But we had over 150 kids. That's pretty spectacular.
I have a question. How much money in modifications are you expecting?
I don't know, because I don't know what the requirements are.
Modification costs? Do you have any
We
kind
don't,
of general budget?
we don't know. I have informed Casey, we've worked with 3 groups over the years. We've worked with Battelle, which is a local group. We've also worked with a group with the golf course that we're getting quotes from, and we've also worked with Scott Edwards' group that we're getting quotes from. When we get those quotes, we'll make a recommendation. I've asked for an hourly. The process is, when we go into that building, if we use the office that that building has, there's no modification, no problem. If we use the classrooms for classes and that, there's no modification. But if we change the use of a classroom, there'll be modifications. Then those modifications will have to done by the architect and approved by the building code inspector, and that's what we'll have to do. I check with the building code so right now we don't know. But we're preparing and making sure that we have the framework so that if you decide to move ahead, we'll be able to get those figures. So
And
that's
what,
where we're at.
what you're asking isn't for us to allocate any kind of money or make an offer. It's just to continue working on it, to spend your
Right.
time.
If the board feels this is not a good idea, why would I waste my time? There has to be a consensus on the board that they want to move with this. I've checked with the staff. I think it's a great opportunity to encourage and to move. We intend to use the Riley property for outdoor education and those type things, but also sometimes you need classrooms for those things and would be able to utilize that. And we'll have another gym, which you can never have enough gyms. We had how many teams?
We have over 60 basketball teams, youth basketball teams this year. Isn't that crazy?
So that is something but it's a big building. And we would work with the city of Dundee. They may want to put their city hall there. We don't know yet.
How many acres are available unbuilt surrounding it, not counting the parking lot? Because I know there's a field next to it. Do you know what the dimensions are of that?
Off the top of my head, I don't. I think you're looking at probably the school building and the grounds right there. I'd say about 4 acres.
I was gonna say 5, but.
Yeah, 4 or 5
don't quote
acres
me on that,
right
but
there.
Roughly that.
Now, the park beside it has always been, the school owns it. And at the time we acquire this, they'll turn all that over as well. That's another 8 or 9 acres.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but
That's the village.
that will, right,
Right.
that the bill at Dundee. So all that will come over.
Gail, you had
I think I'll ask my question, even though I think it's premature. So feel free to just say we'll talk about it later. I was curious about the cash flow of a daycare, and I might just withdraw. Maybe we don't want to talk about that tonight.
Well, I would say, if I might add, I would say our vision for Dundee Elementary would be a recreation center. It's similar to, there's a garden home, it's called Garden Home Recreation Center in Beaverton. Very, very similar. So they have also after-school care for all the Beaverton elementary schools, and they also have,
Senior.
yeah, they have senior, but they also have, art classes, they have fitness classes, they have sports leagues. So when I look at that, at first when I wasn't super excited about it, but when we visited, I thought it would be an enormous opportunity for us because we do not have a recreation center. So we program the Armory, right? We have facility rentals there, we have gymnastics there, we have some fitness classes there, cardio boxing. But other than that, we really don't. We have the aquatic center, but that, and there, obviously kids go to that location. But how I see that elementary or that recreation center working for us and how we would create revenue at that location would be, we would have youth sports in there, so we would use that gymnasium, which is in fantastic shape. We would use that for practices and weekend games and tournaments. We would have art classes in there. We would have our care program there. We would have our preschool, pre-K there. We would have fitness classes there. We could do some adult programming there. We have Party in the Park. We have Movie in the Park there right now, so that would just be perfect. We do take care of the baseball fields there, so we would continue to have baseball out there. The tennis courts are up above. They do have restrooms there. And then we would also, our summer camps. That would be a fantastic place to have our summer camps. Right now, we are limited in that. We would have STEM classes, we would have esports classes. So I think all of that, I'm not sure we have enough space, really.
Okay.
So I'm always for the district getting more property, and because I just think that there's a lot of needs, and I'm not opposed to the idea since we have expertise on daycare. I would want to probably make sure that whatever this money from the county is, what the restrictions to that money is, so that it doesn't, if you want to do daycare and more things, that it doesn't limit it to one use.
Well, in my understanding from being at the meeting is if we were to take that amount of money, if they were to offer that with the ARPA restrictions, we'd have to have a certain amount of classrooms dedicated
Right.
to daycare.
Well, as long as it's like,
Yeah.
because if you're looking at 2.3 divided, as a percentage of the 3.5, that would be 60% of the building would have to be,
Right.
and that, I think, could end up being problematic.
Right.
So I think we have to make sure we're real clear with the county as to what their expectations are,
Yeah.
because if it's, you can buy something and never really be able to use it, and that would not be good.
We had the county there. They went through it. They're well aware. We kind of explained part of our process as they went through it. For instance, with certain things, we may not even use that for all of the care. For instance, the infant care may go over to the Sanders Park,
Correct.
which is just across the street. It's right there. But again, we don't know everything, but the county is aware of what we're trying to do. Am I speaking wrong, Jason?
Yeah,
I
I
yeah.
believe that's correct.
And that's
Yeah.
fine, I'm just saying, the devil is in the details, right? I mean, it's
Right.
ARPA money, so you gotta be careful.
Luckily-
Exactly.
Luckily
Right.
tonight, we just need to
Right,
see if we have a
exactly.
consensus to allow him to move forward, and it sounds like,
Yeah, can I just finish that
Yeah.
too? Because the other thing that I really want to be concerned about is whether that money, if it's not available, are we then in July, if we go forward with this, if we wipe out all of our funds to do this one thing, because it's a huge chunk of money at one time, then what happens to everything else? And then how do we respond to the public who have been asking for a long time for some of these things that, sorry. So I think we just need to, those are just the two things that I think as we're moving along, we really need to be very conscious of.
Don, you go.
Jim. that was
Yeah,
next.
so I'd like some more specifics too, because when we're looking at daycare for 1-year-olds, looking at a 1-to-3 ratio things like that. So I need a lot more information, because I don't want to become a social service agency. But with that said, there is a huge problem with daycare in Newburgh and in our society in general. And I think it would relieve a lot of pain if we could help here. The other part of this is that once it's gone, it's gone. You have a gym in Dundee, you won't have it anymore. You've got those classrooms for recreation center, and in the time that I've been here, it's always been, well, look what Newburgh has all this stuff. Newburgh's got all these things. We're your park district too. We need a community center here in Dundee. We'd like to have that. So here we have an opportunity to be able to provide that to not just the folks that are here now, but the folks in the future. And I think that I understand also the Dundee City Council saying, listen, we'd like to throw a hotel in there because we're going to be able to get that hotel tax, and that's going to help our city this way. I don't know how the community itself feels. That would be good to know. In the community, if they would like to see it, I think it makes sense. And I know they've been asking for places to be for, God darn, years.
Yeah.
And years and years and years.
We've
be
had
able to recreate. And
yeah.
so, and one other thing that alarmed me that Julie brought out, and she can talk about it a little bit, is that we're having a problem with our after. Did you want to expound on that a little bit?
So we do have after-school care at the elementary schools, and we do offer. We have 167 kids registered right now, which is tremendous. We do offer ERDC payments, which is subsidized payments from the state. So we're one of the few agencies that offer that. But Newburgh Christian Church does have a free program. It's called My Zone, and they are offering free care after school at the Title I elementary schools in our community. And so they are set up very, very differently than we are. We are more of we work on, homework, we have arts and crafts, they have free play, there's some gym time, I think I already said homework help. But I think My Zone is set up a little bit differently, but it is an after-school free activity for kids to participate in. And so we are allowed to be in the cafeteria. That's where care is set up. And My Zone is allowed to be in the gymnasiums. And my concern is just moving forward that we will not have the opportunity to grow as a program if we're competing against their hours are restricted as well. They close at 5, and so a lot of times we're having some of the My Zone kids come over and go to our care program, and that is a liability for us. So that's something that's kind of new on the horizon. That My Zone program it's a great program, and it is a grant that's provided by the state, and they've been in the schools now. I think this is their 5th year. And we have worked very hard to work with them, but we do feel like we maybe are not the priority, and also we are losing space because we do like to offer our kids the opportunity to use the gyms as well for some physical activity after school because they need it.
It's the losing space I'm concerned with, and also where they've plucked you in Dundee Elementary School right now down in the basement.
Yeah.
Where I don't know what's down in that basement, but
yeah.
So the reality is I think that I've seen Cedar Hills Recreation Center over in Beaverton. I've seen the other one. I've seen there, and it's packed. Mm-hmm. And I think that we will be able to pack this if it all works out.
I also think that it's important to say that everything once you buy that, or if we were able to buy that. Elementary school, that everything comes with it. So all the chairs, all the tables, everything is included in that. And when we walked through that was impressive, I thought. I was very pleased with how it was set up. They have a library that's really fantastic. Their kitchen is state of the art. So I think that's important to say too.
CARE is a program that we adopted over 30 years ago, and it was the children after and before school recreational experience. That's where the word CARE came from. We were approached by the schools because they were not going to have busing. And the school superintendent approached us and says, we can't do it in the schools. Will you guys do it? We said, yes, we'll do it, but here are the agreements that we want. And they have lived up to those agreements over the years. There's always a little leadway where it goes another way when you get a new superintendent in or a new board, but principals are the same way. But we keep going back to that, and they do their homework, and we stay on the main road and able to work it out. So there's always changes, but this is an opportunity, and it's what the board feels. When we built the cultural center, when the cultural center, we started that in '96, and we signed the contract currently with the way it's operating in 2005. And I think it was 2004 or 5, and it's worked out well for the city. And when we built the golf course, same identical thing. The aquatic center, I got a memo today from a publisher. I sent it to Kat that we're one of the few places in the country, I'm not talking about Oregon, but in the country, there's a handful that are able to program it enough to make the funds. I believe in the staff. I think they can do what they say they're going to do. It won't be easy. It'll be a lot of work, but it serves the public, and there's an opportunity here. So,
Don, the other thing is if we were to do this, we would consolidate. Consolidate.
Yeah.
And the other thing is we would have all of these employees in one location, so if we had a shortage of employees for some reason, we could move them around.
But how does that affect the kids in each one of the schools, though?
No.
They all have to go to Dundee now?
Okay,
Yeah.
in the interest of time, I
Yeah.
think
yeah,
we could literally talk about this for 4 hours. and
we'll
so,
take care of that.
I think that we have consensus. If I'm wrong, someone can say nay or nod their head the other way. We have consensus to allow Dawn to continue pursuing this, and there's a lot more questions and answers that will come probably at the next meeting, I'm sure.
Is it fair to say the board is not opposed to purchasing this building, that if the conditions are right, that we will purchase the building so the school district has
Yeah, but then that's a big condition.
If the conditions are right.
I realize
with that
that.
caveat. Yeah.
But
if you say to them with the idea that you're gonna buy it right now, I don't think you can do that. There's
Alright.
too much that we need to look at.
Yeah, I think that if the conditions are right, it would be the caveat. So that would be, what ARPA money do we get? Is the county on
Right.
board?
Gotcha.
All of the other stakeholders. That's
they
what I think.
understand
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
as well.
So is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we will move on.
We don't need a vote for that.
No.
No.
not at all.
Okay.
I think I've got a consensus unless I hear
Yeah.
otherwise.
Okay, next, reports and comments from board members. You got one?
Yeah, I met, last night, I went to the, because I'm the liaison with the City of Dundee and Dundee Parks, and I met with their park committee last night. And they're all excited about the grant that they got to, they have a small park that they're working on right now, which is great, and they got the grant for the bathroom. So that's great. One thing, though, that it's up to the staff, and I don't want to tell the staff what to do, but there was a complaint, and there's been complaints on the bathroom at Dundee Park. I know it's not up to ADA standards, I know that factually. So we'd have to do some major work there, but in the meantime, during the winter, when it's, quote, not raining, I think that it would be great for the staff to get into all of our restrooms and go through all the restrooms and, plug some of the holes where we used to have like hair dryers and stuff into, repaint the insides of them where it's needed, clean up the lighting, make sure that they look good. I'm not saying, and they're structurally sound, but that they look good and the public is, wants to go into them. And this is the perfect time for us to do that, not the middle of summer. So they said, can you do something about the bathroom? I'm bringing it to the staff's attention and go from there.
Okay, I'll go down the line. Do you have any comment?
No.
Okay, I don't. How about you?
I do, but I think I'm gonna hold off till the pickleball section.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So, updates on committee reports and questions. So I believe the only committee representative we have here is pickleball. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
I played pickleball the other day and I worked out and my legs are talking to me.
Oh, yeah.
So you can sit down.
That hurts anywhere. Guess I'm on. First, I was going to comment on the Oregon public meeting laws that was discussed earlier. And at our last meeting, which was Monday night, and you wouldn't have the minutes yet, but one of the members felt that the decision made was outside the boundaries of these laws.
Decision.
That was made, and Julie referred to it. I'm not a lawyer. All I'm saying is they did send each of us a copy of those Oregon public law, statutes, and I read them. But one of the questions which will come up, maybe I should save that till next time. This person posed a number of questions. One was whether or not, and I don't know the answer to this, a representative of the district should be on each individual committee. And
can I clarify? Sorry, I don't like interfering, but when you say on the committee, do you mean present at the committee or a voting member of the committee?
This was a voting member at the last committee meeting on Monday.
Right, and I think it's pretty clear, unless I'm wrong, staff isn't a voting member on a committee.
I don't think board members, staff or board members are
Correct.
allowed to vote.
Right.
Yeah. So I hope that clarifies, and I think that's also stated in the
Staff is just technical assistant.
Right.
Always has been.
Yeah,
And then
okay.
the board member's role is just to sit and watch
as
the
a
report.
liaison. Yeah. Okay. Sorry for interrupting.
No, that's good. I'm glad
I
you
hope
said
I
that.
cleared that up. Keep going.
And he raised a couple other questions, which I think will hopefully be in the minutes that you'll see next time.
Okay.
But anyway, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Mike Kringlin. I'm a resident of Newburgh. I've been president of the Newburgh Pickleball Club for 2 years on the Columbia River Pickleball Board. And the Columbia River is a 5-chapter organization who I think I mentioned it's over 1,000 members. And recently I was voted to be the spokesperson. We've grown, the Newburgh Pickleball Club itself has grown from 35 to 150 in the last 2 years. We estimate several hundred players of all ages reside in Newburgh or nearby, from students to senior citizens. In the summer, we usually don't have a problem finding a place to play, but when the weather changes, we have very few options. And many of us drive 45 minutes or longer for 6 months of the year to play indoor pickleball. For example, at Rolling Hills, they have daily sessions that open the computer set at 7 a.m. And at 7 a.m., every slot is filled with a waiting list. And so the demand is extremely high in the metro area. Supply is very limited. Now, I thank the board again for forming the committee and the time allotted to us. And I thank Gail specifically, who's part of the committee, and the district staff for meeting with some of us several times. Your pickleball, and I'm speaking for the group now, not just what I think, because everybody gave me a little input for tonight. Your pickleball advisory committee believes we've done everything we can to get to this point. But if we haven't, please tell us what we can do to assist. The committee has presented in the last 2 years a lot of material for the board to consider. For example, we identified for some members the large amount of cash parked with the state. We also understand it is not a small task for new board members like Matt and Jason to be brought up to speed on the various moving parts. I mean, just looking at what's going on tonight, it takes a lot of time. And we understand, and if this is correct, the board has determined some projects are not feasible or the direction the board wants to go, which hopefully would free up additional spending of funds that were budgeted. One of the key things the committee asks is we have tried to educate the board that the need for covered lit courts is very urgent, and that discussion of adding outdoor courts is not a pressing need. We really don't care if a covered facility is designed to make money for the park district like we originally proposed, which was 24 courts or more, or if it's a multi-purpose facility for the community. The idea originally was we were looking for financial benefits to CPRD and businesses in the community, such as motels, hotels, and restaurants. And that's what we thought regional tournaments could bring people to town in the off-season, and that's when these businesses locally are suffering. Early on, we gained the support of organizations like the Chamber of Commerce, the Taste of Newburgh. We also applied for grants, but we were unsuccessful. And I think I pointed out last meeting Julie Peterson's good idea of using a covered fit facility for other purposes such as junior tennis camps, etc. We've also been told the most logical unused site that is owned by the Park District, the 80-acre site near Wilson Road, that even a few acres would not be available for pickleball. We requested a second opinion if the site could accommodate both pickleball at some level and a future golf nine, but have seen no inclination to do this. So we keep scaling down the number of covered courts, given there's a lack of land outside of that 80-acre site in the Newburgh area. And so the only site that we see that's available is at Jaquith Park, where we've been playing and using 12 courts, the whole facility, when there wasn't tennis players showing up. So at a recent meeting Cheryl Greiner and I had with Superintendent Don, he suggested using some space there for covered lit courts, updating the bathrooms, and adding more parking spaces. We've resized of what might be realistic, given what I've said before, and we support this idea. Linda Sandberg, a committee member, recently met with Casey, I was told, and learned, she said the district is actively considering this. We've always stressed the benefits of pickleball for residents of all ages. This sport will continue to grow, and the benefits, which at least two members suggested I mention, social interaction, health benefits, keeping your mind active will keep people healthy. We have researched various leads suggested by the district superintendent and concluded none outside of Jaquith have any possibility in the near term. I know what was discussed tonight, but I don't see that as near term. The board approved a feasibility study, but without a specific location, we concur with the district. There's no need for a feasibility study. I'm a taxpayer. I don't want to waste any money either. So we still seek to work as an asset to the board and to the district, and ideally we'd all move in the same direction. Either we are not effective communicators, or there's some reason we've had little feedback from the board. We do not wish to waste your time, or quite frankly, each of us have alternative uses for our valued time too. So at the last advisory committee, which was Monday, a member proposed, and we concur, we seek the board's direction on a timeline for covered lit courts. If not now, ideally by year end, give us a timeline. Please make a decision as to a specific timeline if the board wants to proceed. And I'm hearing some indication, at least by one or two of you, you'd like to see something. Now again, if there's anything we can do, please advise. Just a couple more points. We suggest the board has a number of choices they could communicate with us. This includes the following two options. One, covered lit pickleball is a priority, but not a top priority. If so, let us know when it makes sense to hold future meetings to assist with the process. Perhaps the district may prefer to resist our assistance, whether it's with a future feasibility study or whatever, but we believe it's in the best interest of the board and the community that we remain involved. The board hopefully now understands CPRD's true cash position, and maybe you have all along, and if so, we respectfully request the board proceed with a fast-track development of Jaquith Park for covered lit courts. One committee member recently stated, "It seems the Pickleball Advisory Committee are just spinning our wheels." And in this process, we're not a whole lot further than we were a year and a half ago. So I don't know if you have any questions, but they see there's
I've got some comments.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So, I asked the park district to put a certain amount of money in our budget this year for pickleball,
Right.
and we did.
Yes.
Because I really, really, really feel that there's a big interest in it. And with that said, though, I had a hard time wrapping my head around about some of the numbers that were coming in and the size and so on and so forth. But I really, as a board member, and I'm not speaking for the board, but I'm speaking for myself as a board member, I really want to get something on the ground, and the sooner the better. So I talked with Dawn and I talked with Casey about Jaquith Park. Because part of the infrastructure is already there. You have bathrooms there. We can increase the parking possibly there, and we can put courts in there. And I talked to some of the tennis people, and I think that we can work together to create something, hopefully, Dawn, sooner than later. And am I say they're going to be covered right away? Possibly not, depending on cost. But with that said, if we can look at it to where we may be able to cover the same course that we build in the future later, and I don't know all the ins and outs of the covering process, then I think we should work towards that. But understand, I don't think that any of the board, and Gail, I appreciate what you've done on the committee and listen to what they've had to say and representing the board, but I don't think any of the board, and if I've misspoken, tell me, are not wanting it to happen, because I think it should. So that's just from my point of view.
Yeah.
And I'm glad what you came with tonight, because it was a lot more easy to digest than some of the other things that have come to this board, at least for me. So thank you so much for your presentation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. We started out on the macro level, like I said, thinking it was going to be a cash flow positive thing. And then we said, well, and subsequent, 16 maybe, because we were thinking, well, maybe if we went small enough on the golf course, they'd have a minimum number of acreage, because the location is so great for attracting people all over. But anyway, so basically, we've pursued, and I've met with Don and others, and there's a lot of things there are a lot of maybes, just like this Dundee Elementary. If you were to get it, you got to invest in the daycare, et cetera, which I understand. But the location of Jaquith is good. And Don talked about in our meeting with Cheryl, the extra parking, but we really need a minimum number of covered lit courts before you spend any money on any
What's your
outdoor.
number?
Huh?
What's your number?
Hey, listen,
I need to know what your number is.
I'll tell you what, I'll settle with, I'd like to have 8.
Okay, thanks.
But if that's unreasonable, tell us.
So I'll just kind of to move this forward. I think
Yeah.
the difficulty from my perspective has been it was approached almost like we had a demand given to us of a space and a facility and all these things. What you're conveying to us now is very different from anything I have ever heard before on the board.
Okay, so then
what
I apologize for our
what you're
communication.
saying is an option that actually is reasonable with the space that we have. Because we've talked
Yeah.
about Rennie Park Court, we've talked about future development, which may give us the ability to have some space for courts. We talked about Jaquith before, and we were kind of rebuffed a bit, it sounded like, at least from where I was sitting, like you guys weren't interested. So the reason for the delay is working through that. So what you've given us is at least information I believe is actionable, but it's not going to be something we're going to talk about tonight. We need to put this on.
Yeah.
Specifically, pickleball is on the agenda for next month, and I'd love if you and Casey can get together and look at lighted, covered options, not indoor facilities. Jaquith wouldn't. I mean, that wouldn't be possible, but there are different covered options that I've seen, I know exist. And so let's start getting the actual details together, because I think Jaquith Park is a park that we've identified as a group before, something needs to be modernized. We have some spots in Jaquith that are not used and that instead are becoming misused, let's just put it that way. So this could be a very good solution.
If the building was enclosed, even if it was a phase-in size, then Julie can use it for junior tennis and everything else, and camps and everything else year-round.
Tennis is tough because the ceiling needs to be about 100 feet taller than
Well,
the pickleball, so it's very expensive.
It's a higher ceiling, it's true.
But we will put it on the agenda
Thank you.
next meeting, and thank you for what you brought to us tonight, because now I think we all have a better idea of something that we can work with.
Real quick, Don, is there a possibility you can bring us schematic drawings of how it could be, not that we're putting in a building yet, but how it could be laid out? That would be good for the board to see.
Yeah, and what I heard was 6 to 8 courts, at least 6 covered.
I heard 8 courts.
Yeah, well, we wanted 24. We're down to 16. We're down to 8.
All right.
Whatever fits in a covered lit facility.
Okay.
And phase it in, whatever you got to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Because right now on the 4 tennis courts, there's 12 pickleball courts. That's how that's set up now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, we'll put on the
Well,
agenda. We need to move on for tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. How to launch?
nothing to.
Nothing. Okay. Superintendent's report.
December the 12th, we'll meet with the school district. I need a board member to meet with me. You'll do it
Yep.
on the 12th? Good. We're going to meet with the school board to discuss the Rennie Field situation. So that'll take care of that. And then we'll bring it back to the board. I think we've pretty much already agreed on how that's gonna go. And so the only question unsolved at this time is, you remember we made a proposal and agreement. It said 99 years. They did not like that term. We kind of agreed on the 50-year. We split it. So we kind of agreed on the 50-year. Then, for whatever reason, they came back with, no, we want 15. But talking with the superintendent, I think the board is ready to go. Personally, I don't really care, because when I say I don't care, because I don't think the public cares which pocket it comes out of, as long as it's there.
Right.
And it's for us to work it out with the school board.
Yeah.
And we're going to do that. We kind of stuck our guns and said, we had an agreement for 50 years, we should stay there.
And Don, I'd like to keep that agreement,
Yeah, I would
Yes.
too.
you know, because that's taxpayers' money. It might be
Exactly.
in different pockets, but I want to make sure that when we
I-
build
I-
it, it stays there.
I've made that pretty clear.
Okay.
So we'll stick with that. I'm just telling you what the discussion is. Their attorney, I hate to say this, I don't mean this derogatory, but their attorney is not from this area. They don't understand the working relationship we have with the current school. The superintendent, I'm quoting what I was told. They don't understand, and we need to make them aware of the relationship and how we've operated in the past, and there's been no difficulty with
Will the
that.
attorney be at the meeting on the 12th?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
we'll get it going.
but anyway,
HVAC?
I put in your board packet, Jim brought that up, and Jim and I have discussed that. I just put in your packet the information concerning the individual, and that'll be ongoing. And Bob and Crystal Riley Park Committee, Casey was going to talk about that. He's not here tonight. He had a family emergency, so we'll put that off and report on operations and projects. I think we've been moving on several things. Do you want to bring anything up, Brian?
No, anything that, in regards to that was in my board packet report.
Okay, then that's all that I have.
Don, we don't know anything about the Bob and Crystal Riley Park group at all, because I know there's some people here that, did Casey leave anything with you?
No, there was a focus group, correct? Kat?
There was a focus group, you mean the committee, the advisory committee
Yeah.
from years ago?
Yeah. And there was a focus group on that.
And it sort of
But-
dissipated over time.
But
is my understanding.
right, and I'd rather for Casey to be here to discuss that.
Right.
So we'll just table it and wait.
And we're passing new committee rules, so
Right.
It's my
It'll
opinion
all
that we need to
fit in.
resurrect that committee
Exactly.
since we have such.
We couldn't do
But you
anything
might as well wait till you
anyway.
adopt
Yeah.
the new rules.
So it will happen, but
Right.
okay. Okay, staff report. So Julie, we'll start with you because this is your time.
Everything's going great. I think I mentioned we have 60 youth basketball teams, which is amazing. And We do practice and play in the elementary and middle schools. And so we've had a great turnout. We're really very, very, very excited about that. Aquatic Center, they are packed. You know, of course, everybody's now working out inside and swimming inside, obviously, but, and we're having lots of party rentals at the Aquatic Center, which is great too. Wendy and Krista, Jim, I wanted to mention, we are going to make an appointment with the Newburgh School District Superintendent, because what we would like to start offering is credit for the high school with swimming. So putting on or having some kind of like a PE credit for, you know, so those two, so we can work together on something like that, so that kids that are swimmers can get credit for that, and then also that gives us an opportunity to potentially garner some lifeguards from that
That'd be great.
experience, right? So we're working on that. Care is packed. I think I mentioned we have 167 kids in our before and after school care, so that's going well. And recreation's going great. Gymnastics classes are going very well. What else do we have going on? And I think that's about us. Senior Center, we had a Senior Center Bazaar, and that was very successful. It was at Creator Elementary, and we had so much participation, so many vendors that we spilled out into the school, and we had a lot of people there. And then, of course, Meals on Wheels, we're still continuing that. And our classes at the Senior Center are really, really doing well. We also had an opportunity we had a vaccination clinic at the Senior Center, which I thought was great. And we partnered with an organization that paid us actually $50 for every vaccination that was given out. It was a grant, and that was a wonderful, kudos to Sarah Larison, who's in charge of the Senior Center, for putting that together. Great participation there.
And then now would be the time, you said you wanted to bring to us the pickleball committee issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gail and I can both speak to that. We've just, you know, we have one individual on the committee that I would say maybe has a little different agenda.
Is that committee, or is that member in our district?
No.
Okay, so I think based on the rules we just passed, that member would no longer be eligible unless we were to make some sort of a exception for an exceptional reason, which it doesn't appear that there would be an exceptional reason if you're saying his own committee voted in preference to remove him. So I would say, based on that, the other comment was that the board probably has to remove members, and that's probably true. So I think we kind of answered our own question earlier with what we're passing in terms of committee rules, if everyone's in agreement with that. Yeah.
Well, you know, I thought that what we kind of passed was that we would let the people who were there still be on it. Probably have to be in district. So I don't know if it might be easier just to remove him, so that it's clear.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that it would be consistent with,
it would be consistent
with the
with
rules.
the new policies.
Right,
Yeah.
Question.
Yes.
Do we have written information concerning a vote and so on to remove him from the committee? And do we have written information on inappropriate actions by this person?
Yes.
That needs to be submitted to us for.
I did send those to you a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in the
And I can definitely resend that.
No, that's okay. If we got it, that's fine. I'm sorry I didn't see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
But if we need to vote, I just want to make sure that we're doing this correctly.
Right, and I think based on our new committee rules, I don't see any basis for making an exception in this account. And so I think that's one reason for removal. And then secondly, if the committee is already determined that that person is no longer wanted by a majority, and we did get those emails, I think it makes sense for us to agree.
Since Gail, you're on the committee.
Yeah.
As our representative, which I appreciate.
There was a lot of internal issues on Monday's meeting, I will say that, and it does need to be addressed. Like, we need to have policies in place that guide this. Julie is a staff member. She is there as a staff member, which means she's the one person who can't get up and find the door. So there was a lot that happened on Monday that was needs to be prevented in the future.
And I'll just say, like, from what you said, Matt, about this was the first time we really actually heard a reasonable request. That request came in big early before you guys were on the board, and then after that it wasn't anything about pickleball. And so I think that, it didn't help that pickleball committee at all. They haven't moved anything on their agenda in any way, so.
And I would like to acknowledge too the tremendous work that everybody else on the committee has done, because it was very difficult for that committee to meet in a positive manner, and those people are volunteering because they love pickleball and they love their community. And I just felt really bad that they were spending their personal time, trying to do something positive, and it was met with resistance, and it just wasn't productive, and it wasn't effective, and so I would like to acknowledge just the hard work of everybody else that was on the committee that really came to the table with the correct objectives and goals, and gave some input. It was very difficult for them to come forward and present those emails and to say, hey, look, this is not right, and this doesn't represent us as a committee. I think that was very difficult for them as well. This is not who we want the board to see, and so for that reason, that started a couple months ago. We just want to move forward.
Mr. Chairman, how would you like to proceed then?
I will make a motion to remove Hunter Wiley from the pickleball committee pursuant to the committee's internal vote.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion's made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay. Brian and Kellen, do either of you have anything to share?
Mine is in your activity report there. If anybody has any questions or anything like that, I'm always here.
Kellen, how's the golf course doing during the atmospheric river?
Saturated.
Yeah. Well, you had a nice long fall though. So.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, it was a good fall.
Paddle launch site.
Yeah.
There you go.
Temporary.
Okay. Two birds with one stone.
Yeah, quiet, but hopefully we get some sun here and there. I'm just kind of turning to tournament planning for next year, programming, rates, things like that this time of year. So.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
Looking forward.
Okay. Well, I believe that's it. And unless there's anything else, we can adjourn. Okay.
I'm glad you don't have to deal with it anymore, because I watched that video and that was just not okay. Thank you for sending that, by the way, for sending the link to that video.
We all
That
needed to
was
see
like,
that.
wow, that was not okay.
That was very bad.
Other than that.